On the morning of November 13, 2012, a woman named Cari Farver walked into work like it was any other Tuesday. She smiled at coworkers, joked about weekend plans, and talked excitedly about a man she had recently started seeing. By the end of the day, Cari would vanish without leaving behind a single confirmed sighting. No security camera would capture her walking away. No one would ever hear her voice again. Yet somehow, over the next 4 years, thousands of text messages, emails, and social media posts would continue to appear under her name. Friends, family, coworkers, and even law enforcement would believe she was alive, angry, obsessive, and constantly on the move. It would become one of the most disturbing cases of identity theft and psychological manipulation in modern American criminal history. A story so twisted that investigators would eventually uncover a killer capable of maintaining an elaborate deception for years, convincing nearly everyone that the victim herself had become the villain. Before the nightmare began, Cari Farver lived what many would describe as a normal Midwestern life. She was a successful computer programmer from Iowa, intelligent, independent, and deeply devoted to her teenage son. Those closest to her described her as caring, funny, hardworking, and fiercely protective of the people she loved. She wasn't someone who disappeared without warning. She wasn't known for reckless behavior or impulsive decisions. If Cari made a promise, she kept it. If she committed to raising her son, she gave everything she had. Her life revolved around work, family, and building a stable future. Then, during the fall of 2012, she met Dave Krupa, Dave had recently ended a long-term relationship and wasn't looking for anything serious. He was focused on his work. Through an online dating site, he met Cari, and the two quickly developed a casual relationship. According to Dave, both of them agreed they weren't interested in commitment. They enjoyed each other's company, spent time together, and kept things simple. At least, that's what Dave believed. But someone else had been watching from the shadows. Dave's former girlfriend, Shanna Golyar, had dated him on and off for years. Although they had broken up, she still maintained contact with him. Their relationship had never truly ended emotionally. Friends described it as complicated, unstable, and full of lingering feelings. Shanna appeared friendly enough, but beneath that calm exterior hid a personality few people fully understood. As Dave began spending time with Cari, strange events unfolded. According to Dave, the morning after Cari spent the night at his apartment, she allegedly looked out the window and remarked that she could imagine herself living there with him. Dave later claimed he was surprised because they had agreed to keep their relationship casual. He said he responded politely but made it clear he wasn't interested in moving that quickly. Then, according to Dave, Cari suddenly left for work. Minutes later, he received a shocking text message from her phone. The message declared that she wanted to move into his apartment immediately. Dave replied that he wasn't ready for such a commitment. Within seconds, another message arrived, this time angry and confrontational. Over the following hours, dozens more texts flooded his phone. They became increasingly aggressive, accusing him of lying, manipulating her emotions, and ruining her life. Dave couldn't understand what had happened. Less than 24 hours earlier, yet before anyone could report her missing, new messages suddenly appeared. Texts from Cari claimed she had accepted a new job and moved away. Everything had seemed perfectly normal. Now the woman he barely knew appeared completely obsessed. Or so it seemed. Meanwhile, Cari never returned home. When family members couldn't reach her, concern began growing. Her mother repeatedly tried calling. Her teenage son wondered why his mother had suddenly stopped answering messages. Co-workers noticed she had disappeared without explanation. This wasn't like Cari. She never abandoned responsibilities, especially not her son. Emails insisted she needed space. Friends were told not to contact her. Her family received similar explanations. The messages sounded unusual, but they were coming directly from Cari's accounts and phone number. It was enough to create uncertainty. Had she simply decided to start over? Had she left voluntarily? Or was something terribly wrong? As weeks passed, the messages became even stranger. Hundreds turned into thousands. Some declared their love. Others threatened revenge. Some accused Dave of destroying her life. Others promised she would never stop following him. He blocked one number only to receive messages from another. Email accounts multiplied. Fake profiles appeared across social media. The harassment spread beyond Dave himself. Women he dated began receiving threatening messages supposedly sent by Cari. Some were warned to stay away from Dave or suffer consequences. Others were accused of stealing someone else's boyfriend. The language became frighteningly personal. One woman found her property vandalized. Another reported receiving bizarre anonymous threats. Everywhere Dave turned, Cari's digital presence seemed impossible to escape. Yet nobody had physically seen her. Despite all the messages, no confirmed witness could place Cari anywhere after November 13. Family members pleaded with investigators to look deeper. But every new email complicated the investigation. Detectives saw electronic evidence suggesting Cari was still alive. Missing adults showed without evidence of violence or a crime scene, there appeared to be little authorities could do. Meanwhile, Dave himself became increasingly convinced he was dealing with an unstable ex-girlfriend determined to ruin his life. The harassment consumed his days and nights. His phone, the messages continued. He moved homes. Somehow the threats followed him. Women he dated left because they couldn't handle the constant intimidation. It was as though someone was watching every move he made. Unknown to Dave, someone actually was. Around the same time, another terrifying incident shook the case. The fire caused significant damage, but even then, nobody could definitively connect it to Cari or anyone else. Instead, more threatening messages arrived claiming responsibility while continuing the narrative that Cari had become dangerously obsessed. Friends started believing the impossible. Maybe Cari really had suffered a psychological breakdown. Maybe she truly was stalking Dave. The digital evidence seemed overwhelming. Yet one person refused to accept that explanation, Cari's mother. She knew her daughter better than anyone. Cari loved her son too much to disappear forever. She would never voluntarily abandon him without saying goodbye. She wouldn't ignore birthdays, holidays, or family emergencies. Something about those messages felt wrong. The tone lacked the warmth and humor that defined Cari's personality. It was as though someone was pretending to be her without fully understanding who she really was. Fortunately, proving that suspicion would take years. During that time, the harassment escalated beyond anything investigators had encountered before. Hundreds of fake online identities emerged. Anonymous emails targeted not only Dave, but co-workers, relatives, and strangers connected to him. Personal information leaked online. Threats became increasingly graphic. The campaign appeared endless. Whoever was responsible possessed extraordinary patience, technical knowledge, and an almost obsessive determination to manipulate everyone involved. As detectives slowly revisited the evidence, cell phone records didn't always align with the locations claimed in the messages. Certain emails originated from unexpected devices. Some digital accounts appeared to have been accessed simultaneously from places that made little sense. None of it alone proved murder, but together the puzzle pieces hinted at something far more sinister than an angry ex-girlfriend sending obsessive texts. Then investigators uncovered another disturbing pattern. Nearly every major event connected to the harassment somehow intersected with one person who always seemed to be nearby. Someone who had long appeared to be a source of comfort eventually became an important focus of the investigation, marking a dramatic turning point in the story. At first, detectives viewed Shanna as simply another woman terrorized by Cari's relentless campaign. She claimed her home. She even appeared frightened for her own safety. But experienced investigators know that sometimes the loudest victim is hiding the darkest secret. The deeper they dug into digital records, financial transactions, phone metadata, and surveillance evidence, the more impossible coincidences they uncovered. Every discovery pointed toward a shocking possibility that few could imagine. What if Cari Farver had never sent a single threatening message after the day she disappeared? What if every text, every email, every fake profile, every threat, every lie that had consumed 4 years of countless lives had actually been created by one calculating individual determined to erase a murder while rewriting reality itself? As investigators prepared search warrants and quietly assembled the evidence, they had no idea they were about to expose one of the most elaborate and chilling deception campaigns in American true crime history, a case where the victim's identity would be weaponized long after her death, and where the truth hidden beneath thousands of digital messages would prove even more horrifying than anyone had imagined. As investigators intensified their focus on Shanna Golyar, the carefully constructed illusion that had survived for nearly 4 years slowly began to crack. Every search warrant revealed another piece of an extraordinarily complex puzzle. Digital forensic specialists painstakingly examined thousands of emails, text messages, IP addresses, login histories, and electronic devices. What they discovered challenged almost everything people believed about the case. Many of the threatening emails supposedly written by Cari Farver were traced back to internet connections associated with Shanna. Accounts that appeared to belong to Cari had repeatedly been accessed from devices linked to Shanna's home, her workplace, or locations she frequently visited. The woman who had consistently portrayed herself as another victim of Cari's obsession was increasingly emerging as the person controlling the entire narrative. Detectives soon realized they were dealing with someone who possessed remarkable patience and an almost unimaginable level of manipulation. For years, Shanna had allegedly maintained dozens of fake email accounts, created false social media profiles, sent anonymous threats, impersonated multiple people, and carefully orchestrated a campaign designed to convince everyone that Cari was still alive. Every birthday that passed without Cari, every holiday, every worried phone call from family members, every emotional plea from her son, Behind the scenes, someone continued typing messages in Cari's name, ensuring the missing woman remained digitally present while physically absent. It was a deception so elaborate that it delayed the discovery of the truth for years. But investigators knew digital evidence alone would not be enough. They needed proof that Cari had not simply disappeared voluntarily. They needed evidence that a murder had occurred. That breakthrough began with the discovery of physical evidence hidden in plain sight. During searches connected to the investigation, detectives located blood evidence linked through DNA analysis to Cari. The findings directly contradicted the story. Blood was recovered from locations connected to the investigation, and forensic testing established that it belonged to Cari. Suddenly, the missing person investigation transformed into a homicide case. Detectives now believed Cari had been killed shortly after she was last seen alive, meaning every text message, every email, and every online interaction supposedly sent by her afterward had been part of an elaborate fabrication. The horrifying reality slowly emerged. Prosecutors would later argue that shortly after Cari visited Dave Krupa on November 13, 2012, murdered her, concealed her body, and then assumed control of her entire digital identity. Instead of allowing the victim to simply disappear, Shanna allegedly chose something even more disturbing. She transformed Cari into an invisible ghost, someone who appeared alive through technology while being unable to speak for herself. For nearly 4 years, investigators, friends, co-workers, and even family members unknowingly communicated with the person accused of killing her. Every fake apology, every angry accusation, every threatening message served one purpose: to convince the world that Cari. The psychological cruelty of that deception stunned even experienced investigators. Cari's family had spent years believing there was still hope she might return. Her son had grown older, wondering why his mother refused to contact him. Friends questioned whether they had somehow misunderstood the woman they thought they knew. Dave lived under relentless harassment, convinced he was being stalked by someone who had actually been murdered. The emotional damage extended far beyond the killing itself. Investigators later described the manipulation as one of the most extensive catfishing and impersonation schemes they had ever encountered in a homicide investigation. As detectives continued building their case, they uncovered additional incidents that painted an even darker picture. The suspicious fire at Dave's home no longer appeared to be an isolated event. Prosecutors argued it was part of the same campaign of intimidation intended to strengthen the illusion that Cari was dangerous and unstable. There were allegations of vandalism, anonymous harassment, and repeated efforts to isolate Dave. Those who entered his life gradually became connected to a series of events that investigators would later scrutinize as the case continued to unfold, receiving emails and messages supposedly from Cari warning them to stay away. Some relationships ended because the constant harassment became unbearable. Shanna allegedly positioned herself as the only person who truly understood what Dave was experiencing, creating a cycle in which she appeared to be both victim and trusted confidante while secretly orchestrating the chaos herself. Every new revelation made the case seem even more unbelievable. Detectives eventually recovered electronic devices containing evidence that prosecutors argued directly connected Shanna to the fake accounts. Digital footprints that once appeared insignificant now formed a clear search histories, account recoveries, login records, stored passwords, deleted files, and forensic examinations all pointed toward the same conclusion. The person pretending to be Cari had never truly disappeared because she had never existed after November 13, 2012. The real Cari had been silenced almost immediately, while someone else borrowed her identity to hide the crime. Eventually, investigators located Cari's remains on rural property in Iowa. Although years had passed, the discovery finally gave her family something they had desperately sought: certainty. But also by the possibility of justice. After years of unanswered questions, detectives could finally tell Cari's loved ones what they had feared all along. She had been taken from them. The legal proceedings that followed attracted national attention because the facts seemed almost impossible to believe. During the trial, prosecutors presented an enormous volume of digital evidence illustrating how meticulously the impersonation had been maintained. Jurors heard about thousands of messages sent over several years, fake identities, fabricated conversations, staged harassment, and forensic links. They also heard testimony regarding physical evidence connecting the homicide to the victim. The defense challenged portions of the prosecution's case. The growing body of digital and forensic evidence became a defining element of the trial. After careful deliberation, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Cari's family, the verdict brought justice, but not closure. No courtroom decision could restore the years that had been stolen, the birthdays missed, or the emotional torment endured by everyone who believed Cari had willingly disappeared. Her son had spent critical years of his life without his mother, not knowing that every message supposedly sent from her phone had actually come from someone else. It is difficult to imagine the pain of realizing that the person you desperately hoped was alive had, in reality, been gone since the very beginning. The case also became a landmark example of how modern technology can be weaponized in criminal investigations. Investigators emphasize that digital communication should never automatically be accepted as proof that someone is alive or acting voluntarily. And even ongoing conversations can be manipulated by someone with enough determination and technical ability. In Cari's case, her online identity became the murder weapon's final disguise. Instead of hiding the body alone, the killer allegedly hid the victim inside the internet, creating a false version of her that continued interacting with the world long after her death. Law enforcement agencies across the United States have since referenced the investigation as an example of the importance of combining traditional detective work with advanced digital forensics. Without meticulous analysis of electronic records, IP logs, metadata, and forensic examinations, the deception might have continued even longer. The investigation demonstrated that every deleted file, every login attempt, every recovered email, every digital clue can become part of a much larger story. The case remains a reminder that appearances can often be deceiving, especially online, can be dangerously deceptive. Her case is not remembered solely because of the tragic murder, but because of the extraordinary length someone allegedly went to rewrite reality itself. For years, the world believed Cari had transformed into an obsessive stalker. In truth, she had become the victim of one of the most chilling identity theft schemes ever uncovered in an American homicide investigation. The person everyone feared was never sending the threats. The woman blamed for years of harassment had never written another message after the day she disappeared. Instead, those messages became the voice of the very person accused of ensuring Cari would never speak again. It is a story that forces us to question how much we truly know about the digital lives people leave behind, and how easily technology can be manipulated. Behind every text message is a person. But as the investigation into Cari Farver revealed, the name on the screen is not always the person behind the keyboard. In the end, justice arrived because investigators refused to stop asking one simple question that everyone else had accepted without challenge. If Cari was truly alive, then why had no one actually seen her? That single question unraveled years of deception, exposed a calculated killer, and finally restored the voice that had been stolen from a mother, a daughter, a friend, and a woman whose real story deserved to be told.